another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today we have Kacia and Seena Ghetmeri, who are two incredible entrepreneurs and real estate investors who have done like every single strategy you can think of and have scaled to literally $5 million worth of real estate, probably more now, right? But in 15 months, which is wild, while navigating everything in this whole new life as new parents, which is incredible. Welcome to the show.
Oh, we're so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And it's about time because I know you're built to do podcasting. So
literally.
No, I mean, yes. I've been having so much fun with this. And I know that whenever I speak to y'all, like the energy just comes out. So I'm like, let's freaking go.
No need for coffee. We're good to go.
Oh, never. Okay, well, Seena and Kacia, why don't you tell everyone who is Seena and Kacia? Like even before the real estate, before the business, where did you guys start off?
Yeah. So I'll start. I'm Kacia, and Seena and I have been together for 15 years. And like you just mentioned, we have a new baby boy, Brody, who at the time that we're recording this is 4.5 months old. So we're in a really interesting season of life. But previously to this and everything that we'll talk about with real estate, I did the thing that I thought that I was supposed to do. And then I got there and I looked around and I was like, crap, this is not what I want. Similar to your story, Olivia, where like I went to college and then I got a job and I started working my way up the corporate ladder. And because we become a byproduct of the expectations of our peer group, even dating Seena at that time and all of our friends, it was like, yeah, Kacia, you just kind of like, you count down the days till Friday, you just work your way up. But intuitively, I knew that something was off. And I had been like a child entrepreneur, meaning I sold like Huckleberry jam on the street corner. And I always like had this idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know what that looked like. So I ended up starting my first business on the side of my full-time corporate job in 2014. That ended up turning into me building a huge organization in network marketing and learning about like public speaking and built a keynote speaking career. And then I started my own podcast, Empower Her, at the end of 2018. That turned into helping other women in the podcasting space and live events and retreats. And basically I've just been like pivoting all over the place until I got to a point where I recognized that everything that I was doing to make money required me to be on. So I had to host the event or run the course or speak on the podcast or speak on the stage in order for me to be paid. And while I loved it, I was thinking forward to us having a family. And I was like, we're going to have to make a change here. So that's kind of the...
Just a few things.
Yeah.
So I'm Seena, and I took the more, I guess, like structured route, I think. So I'm a first generation immigrant here. My parents are from Iran, and I did the thing. I felt the pressure to be like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, things like that. So I went the dentist path. I found that to be what I wanted to do. I was like, they seem like they have a good life. You know, they work 3 days a week, they golf. They get a lot of vacation. I'm like, I'm built for that. So let's go for that. So I spent like 10 years, right, between undergrad and dental school, going down that path and got into the real world, started working. And this is the time Kacia had her own business. So her business was taking off as an entrepreneur. I'm like, I'm going to be this like dentist. And when I'm working in the real world, it's going to be great. We're going to make all this money and I'm going to just love it. Well, graduated from dental school, started working in San Diego. I was like, ooh, this is a lot different than what I thought it would be, right? Like in school, I'm like, oh, this is just, as soon as we graduate, it's going to be really easy. Well, no, it gets harder. And so we're in the real world. I'm like, man, this is tough. Going through that, doing that for a couple of years, getting some experience. We ended up moving to Austin after a couple of years of living in San Diego. And I wanted to find a new clinic where it was more like private practice feel, less hours, less patients, because I was kind of in a model that was seeing more patients, high volume, getting my reps in, experience. So I find that in Austin and start working for about 5-6 months and everything was great. And then the honeymoon phase started wearing off and I'm sitting there one day after work and I'm like, man, this isn't it. Like, I can't do this for the next 30 years. I was just drained and I'm like, you know what? Like, maybe this just isn't for me, which is crazy because if, anyone listening, you've done something for so long and you know this, Olivia, you spent so long getting into a career. You're like, man, I just spent all that time and money getting here. And I'm like, I don't even like it. Like, I can't do this. So I had to have a real talk like to myself. And then Kacia gets home later that same evening. And I told her, I was like, babe, like, sit down. We have a bottle of wine. I got to talk to you. I think I want to leave dentistry. And she's like, hype woman 1000. She's like, yeah, call him and quit right now. And it's like 11 o'clock at night on a Friday. I'm like, well, I can tell him on Monday. But her support really helped in that situation because that was a tough transition. And we can even get into more details of that whole process. That's just a high level overview. Ended up being like, we wanted to get into real estate. So I'm like, well, I just want to try real estate for 6 months. And I don't even know what that meant at the time. Like
he said, I want to quit dentistry, Keish, and I want to be a quote unquote real estate investor. And I was like, cool. Like I literally was like, sounds great. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about, but like, let's go.
Keep in mind, we just rented our primary. We didn't even own anything.
Yeah.
Now, like I looking back now, like that's not the best way to go about it. To just like quit and do that. Cause there's a lot of stumbling around, a year of analysis paralysis, figuring out what the heck a real estate investor does on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But it's all led us to here. So we finally eventually, bought our first property. It's long-term rental, got into Airbnb, midterm rentals. Now we're in fix and flips, private money lending.
Yeah.
Which we can get into whatever you want to get into, but that's the high level overview. And haven't looked back a day to go back to dentistry since that day. So
no, I absolutely love that. And it's just, because you're kind of like me. You guys had that inner knowing within yourself. There was just something was off. And it was so funny because I like delayed going into the workforce. Like I was like, I'm going to go get my like my master's degree because I just wasn't ready. Right. Yeah. And I remember seeing so many other people who'd gone into the workforce and they were super unhappy. And in my brain, I was like, well, why don't you just quit? Even this was before I even like considered not being an engineer, but my brain instantly went to, well, just quit and do something else. And they're like, no, I can't do that. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But you guys, like, how long did it take working, in your corporate jobs or as a dentist before you got to the position where you're like, okay, I'm going to actually quit this and go all in and whatever in entrepreneurship? Yeah.
So I started in tech recruiting and I quit the day that I was going to get a huge promotion that at 22 years old, I would have been making like 250 grand a year. And I quit because I felt like it was a golden handcuffs. Yep. And like the feeling of being stuck in something that I already knew intuitively wasn't aligned, even though I didn't know what was next. I could not be stuck feeling like I had to do something that I already could play out that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, I wasn't going to love. So I knew the first year, but at that point, Seena was applying to dental school and we were dating, but not living together. And I knew that when he was in dental school, whenever eventually he got into dental school, that like one of us was going to need to have like some sort of income. So I was like, well, try this other thing. And I ended up getting into an IT project management role. And I knew right away that my personality could not be shoved into a pencil skirt. Because like it was not going to work, but it was, I'm like a very silver linings type of person where I'm like, let's just play with this. Like, we'll just make this fun. But a couple months into that, I started a business on the side and that income eventually replaced my corporate income, which my last job was at Google. So I knew probably month one when I was in like the corporate structure that it wasn't right, but it took me about 2 years to a year and a half to start building something on the side and then 2 years to actually leave.
Yeah, you did it much smarter than I did it. She built it up on the side and then passed her corporate income, which is going back. I mean, I don't regret how we did it and how it went down of me leaving and everything, but I think that's a much smarter way to do it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I think Kacia knew that the industry wasn't my thing before I even knew.
Yeah.
Because you just saw how I talked about it and like I would come home pretty drained and you're excited about your business and I'm just like, I wonder what that would be like to be excited about what you're doing. But I'm a dentist. Like, it's great. Like, I have good money and, I should be grateful for what that is. And I should like stick it out because I spent so long getting there, that whole like sunk cost fallacy thing. So for me, it was kind of an all or nothing. I had to just like, I was so burnt out of it and like drained that I just had to like make the jump. And in the back of my head, I was like, well, I can just go back, in 6 months. I had a good relationship with the clinic I was at and they said, yeah, just let us know if you want to come back. So they were super cool about it.
But it was the identity piece, I think, that like is really relevant to people listening into this, that I was not attached to the identity of anything. I actually just love like changing my mind and having this like full rich experience. I felt like my example of doing that was going to inspire other people to go chase what they wanted. So I just was never attached to like, who is Kacia in this role? Seena, on the other hand, was definitely attached to like, I'm a dentist, insert whatever you believe to be true about me because of this title that I have. And breaking those assumptions, I think, was big too.
Well, yeah, and the validation that comes from you go
Yeah.
to a dinner party and you say you're a dentist and
Yeah.
oh, you're a doctor. Like you get a lot of credibility, right? You're smart. They think you make a lot of money, things like that. And not having to rely on that anymore and having like self-validation, I guess if you want to call it that, is really the biggest shift that took place through the whole process.
So
no,
good.
that's so fair. And it's so funny because even like once I quit my corporate job as an engineer, for the longest time, I still kept calling myself, yeah, I used to be an engineer, just to like say like, no,
Yes.
I used to have like a really prestigious high. And it's like, why? And now it's so funny because I see other engineers and I'm like, literally, it doesn't freaking matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means absolutely nothing. But there is that whole identity piece. I remember I even like the second I knew I was going to quit, I literally cried because I was like shedding this whole other side of me. And for the longest time, it was like, oh, I am the example for other young Black women and going into engineering, breaking the status quo, all of that.
Yeah.
But it is so crazy how much value we put on that career or whatever it is, where really it's such a like minor part of you when it comes to the grand scheme of who you actually are.
Yeah, you're so much more than that. And the other wrinkle is, telling your immigrant mother that you're going to leave being a doctor to go in real estate investing. And she's like, well, I'm still going to tell my friends you're a dentist.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Sure.
I guess so. Tell me how that was, especially with your parents. Like, were your parents supportive? Kind of? Were they like, no,
Yeah, I wouldn't say supportive. It's just like, what do you mean you're leaving being a doctor? Like, that's like the pinnacle. And they mean well. That's the thing. Like, the parents are just trying to protect you and they want you to have a good life and a safe job and everything. But the reality was my job wasn't safe. Like, I thought it was. And come COVID, I went from 5 days a week to 2 days a week. And so did my pay. Like, there's no PTO, there's nothing. So luckily, Kacia's business was doing well at the time and we could, have the lifestyle we still wanted. But if I was the sole income earner, that wouldn't have happened. And that's really what kind of sparked that idea of investing, because we didn't really think about investing. We're like, well, we'll just always earn more and we'll be fine. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wait, like this is later. We need to figure it out now.
Well, I had that in the back of my head, like where I loved what I was doing, but I knew how much energy was required for me to show up the way that I was showing up. And I was thinking about a future version of me that I was like, what is she going to want? What type of options is she going to want? What if she wants to take a step back? And like, especially with parenting, I was like, I didn't know what that version of me would be like. So when Seena brought to me the idea of him wanting to leave dentistry, number one, I wanted my best friend and husband like to build the life that he loved and do something that he was passionate about. That was number one. Number two, I didn't want to be married to a Debbie Downer who was in Eeyore mode because he hated what he loved or hated his job. And then number three, I was like, wait a second, real estate, I don't know much about this, but this could be a ticket to us having more options later. And I'm really motivated by options. So what could that look like if we started this now before we started a family? And that was a real, that was a click for me instantly. Even though I didn't know what a real estate investor did, I was like, this feels like more optionality for a future version of us. So like, sign me up, I'm in.
Yeah.
Totally. So I guess in your words, what would you say a real estate investor actually is?
They do everything. I don't know. Like, you just like end up doing everything. No, a real estate investor.
You buy properties.
Yeah, you buy properties. You fill them with people, whether it's long-term or short-term rental. And it's pretty simple. Like you rent it out. Like
you buy properties and you manage the properties, or you find someone else to manage them. It's that simple, but it just seems like it's really complicated because there's so many directions that you can go that it can feel overwhelming. And one of my biggest pet peeves about the real estate investing industry is that I feel like sometimes people make things seem so complicated and it's like, oh my gosh, you have to know what all these things are. But it's like, first, you just need to take the first step. And then you learn step 2, step 3, step 4. You can't know 800 steps because you don't know what's going to happen with that property, with the economy, insert whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and well, Olivia, like our engineer minds, like Olivia and I, like, we're like, well, what's step 1 through 30? And we got to know every step. But that's just not how real estate works. No. It's like first step, find the property. Second step, build a property.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, underneath each of those steps, there's a bunch of little steps that you have to do, but really that's it.
Yeah. And if you miss a step, like it's not going to be the end of the world. You'll like, you'll be forced to come back and do it anyway.
Yeah. So true.
I guess so. You guys also you took a very different approach than what a lot of people do, because everyone tells you to niche down, figure out one strategy, do that one strategy, and go all in on it. But you said, nope, I'm gonna do this our way, right? And try a bunch of different strategies. So what direction did you go in, and why did you decide to do it like that?
So we started in the long-term space because we had a friend and mentor named Steve who had $50 million worth of assets in long-term rentals. That was his portfolio. And I met him in a business mastermind. And I was like, oh yeah, like my husband's kind of interested in real estate. And they ended up connecting because of one of the things that I think is really important, especially for your listeners to hear, is like, talk about what it is that you're interested in, because you never have any idea who you could be connected to that might be able to be a resource for you or a potential partner for you, or that you could do something, like together in some capacity. And Steve, I told Seena, I was like, tell him that you're interested in real estate and he can help you. He's done a lot of this stuff in long term. And I basically just made a connection between the two of them. But because he had done long term, Seena learned through him and thought, that's what we're going to do. And as soon as the idea was to do long-term rentals for forever, that's when I tapped out, because I was like, that sounds super boring. And I also just didn't feel like I could add anything to that. It's like, okay, you buy a long-term rental and then you put a tenant in it. This particular property that we bought was in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were moving to Denver. So we didn't live near it. I was like, there's nothing for me to do. I'm kind of bored of this model. And it was only cash flowing $200 a month, but it got us in the game.
Yep.
And we chose not to niche down to that because we wanted to see how we could do something together. So it wasn't until we went to an Airbnb meetup that we went to only to support a friend who owns an Airbnb brokerage that we got our eyes opened to Airbnb, which Seena was definitely not down with.
I was like, I don't want to do that. It's a fad. It's too much work, blah, blah, blah. But then we get there and we start talking to people. And I'm like, wait, you make how much? Here we are over here with our $200 a month rental profit. I'm like, oh, wait, okay, maybe I should be open. And this just goes to show, if you're getting in the game or you've done it one way, go to different meetups, go talk to people. Don't just read the internet, because someone's going to say Airbnb's dead. The other person's going to say you can only do Airbnbs to make money. Go talk to real people that are doing it and ask them what it's like in your area, and talk to them. What's a day to day? What are you seeing out there? And as soon as we got that, it just clicked for us, because we then saw in the market in Denver, there wasn't any girls retreat, bachelorette houses. And Kacia has a big women's community. We're like, well, what if we just created a cool house for women, right? Kind of artsy and girl themed, that they could come and do retreats in Denver and bachelorette parties. And you were on board once that happened.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, let's go get one. We went and got that house, and, right away it was we niched to that market, and it just started taking off of the bachelorette parties and girls retreats, right off the bat, which was crazy.
And it's interesting too for anyone listening. And it's what's your season of life and what are you looking for? Because that long-term rental, I'm not knocking $200 a month, because you're talking about appreciation over time, loan pay down. And it's a little piggy bank to the side if you're working your full-time corporate job or you're whatever. But we needed the cash flow if we wanted to create more options for us. So Airbnb is so much more cash flow that we were really interested in that model. And then simultaneously, while we were closing on that first Airbnb with the idea to create a bachelorette party house, Seena was binging YouTube videos about creative financing, because we were like, how could we scale and take money from my business, active income, and put it into something that could be more so passive? Yeah. So we were looking at what are options for loans, because we can't get two conventional loans at the same time. So we learned a lot about creative financing, and he was cold calling. Because again, it's what does a real estate investor do? This was his full-time job, because we didn't do the pivot to this and let him build this on the side. He was full-time in this. And I was like, so you better fill your day, because we don't have kids. What are you doing?
I was like, I guess I'll just call people. Is that what I do? And
yeah.
I'd call. It was so awkward. I'd call them and be like, hey, so
tell me about your house.
Still have your house?
You have a roof?
And then, well, I'd be terrified when they answer, because now I have to actually ask them something about it.
Oh my god!
And then they're like, "Okay, what do you want to know?" I was like, "Oh, I guess are the walls still there? Maybe, you know what I mean? It's so awkward at first, but it's a good way to build the confidence. So now it's not a problem, but it's
totally.
So weird at first, not knowing anything about real estate. So it's
well, it's you just have to get started. Literally everything's going to feel so weird and awkward the first time that you do it, but it just takes getting started, getting your hands dirty. You're going to know so much more for the next time that you do it, and it's going to be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys went real ham in the short-term rental space. Why did you choose, bachelorette? And a lot of people get really nervous about niching down, right? They're like, well, I kind of want something that is going to appeal to everyone. And,
Yeah.
you know, Kacia, you've done that with your business too, where it's like female only. So what was your reasoning behind that?
I think like it's really powerful to look at the market and see like, is there a space that doesn't exist yet? Just in terms of like, you want to be the house that when someone sees it, they're like, hell yes, or hell no. And I think a lot of times we think if we cast our net wider of like, oh, my property's for everyone, that it's going to be more inclusive, but then everyone feels lukewarm about it.
Yeah.
Like the people that book our properties, they're like, I have to have my bachelorette party at this house, or I have to host a retreat here because this is designed for me. Like down to like the types of hair dryers that we have at one of our properties called Champagne House. Like they're dry bar blow dryers because I'm like, those ones actually work. Like, and it's like, that's what they want. Right. So we just knew that at first with Peach House, our first property, like our first Airbnb property, we knew that niching down was like a little bit terrifying. I think it was more terrifying for Seena than me, but I was like, I know that there is like, this is gonna work. And after doing that first one, seeing proof of concept and seeing the feedback that we were getting, the reviews that we were getting, we then created the next property that was even more niched. Like Champagne House, our second one is even, I mean, you've been to both of them. It's like, it's like Marilyn Monroe murals and like bubbles and like, it's way even more vibey because we like almost like dipped our toes in with Peach House and we're like, okay, this works. Let's go even harder. And like, now
but that's the like we would only get to that point of having that confidence if like you get started. So like if you're just starting and you see these people like doing these crazy Airbnbs or whatever, they were also had to take that first step and they were just as terrified and just as nervous to do that, whereas we built up the confidence, and the only way to get that confidence is to get to do it and get some results, right, and see what's working and what's not working, because you can theorize all day, but until you actually feel like that was worth it and you're learning and you know you can build that confidence to go do the next one, you just have to get started to get to that point.
Totally. So I'm curious, which one's performing better? Is it Peach House or Champagne House?
Champagne House is kicking Peach House's butt right now.
They're both doing really
well. They're doing good, but like
and then also like because we have our a quadplex that we bought through creative financing at the same time that we bought Peach House, and that's a midterm rental and it's not themed. Right. So like, I think sometimes people like get stressed even about midterm rentals where like that is furnished to the basics. Like just that's what people like. Great internet because people are corporate professionals traveling, good mattresses if they're traveling nurses, but like we didn't have to niche that one down. But it's like, if you want to have like a slam dunk, I think you have to niche an Airbnb. Like your grandma's weird couch isn't going to work anymore.
No.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. So I guess, you know, even talking about the midterm rentals, like, I guess, what are your thoughts around the midterm rental strategy in general?
Yeah, I like it overall. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite because you don't really get to create that experience like we do at the bachelorette houses. And really people in the midterm space, they're just looking for a nice, clean, safe place to stay, which is fine. It's a great strategy for that. And it's actually a really easy way if you have like a basement or an ADU. It's a really easy way to get into that world if you don't want to go straight to short term and have like new people in your house every weekend. So that's a great, and you don't have to have as much startup costs because you're not theming, you're not doing murals and like all that stuff. So I like it for that reason. And it's just diverse, right? Like we kind of have a little bit of each. So it allows us to just be spread out a little more than just being like heavy on one side of things.
And it makes more like what, 1.5 times the rent?
Yeah, you make
1.5 to 2 times the rent of what it would be if it was a long-term rental.
Yeah.
So I think that's like from a cash flow perspective. And then for people that don't know, like midterm, we are referring to like 30 plus day stays.
Yeah.
So
and the regulations, like most cities treat everything over 30 days as a long-term rental. So you're not getting really, there's a lot of regulation coming down with short-term rentals, and we can get into that about why it's important to know that. But they're treated the same. So you're not running into all the logistical issues of being able to rent it.
Yeah. And I guess from a management perspective, like what differs for y'all when it comes to your short-term rentals versus your midterm rentals?
Yeah, we ended up hiring a property manager because we have 4 units there. So I was spending my time they want to see, a lot of people want to see the place before they come in, because usually if it's a nurse that has a contract, so they book their place and they get extended. Like they're like, okay, they just extended me 2 more months, but the place I booked is already booked again. So I need to find a new place. So they're usually in town and they want to come check it out. So I was spending my days like running over there, showing the units. I'm like, man, this is just like not working. And it just, not the best use of my time
Yeah.
to keep doing that. So we ended up hiring a property manager to do that. So we're not as hands-on with that one.
I know it's pretty crazy because like I switch my units here in New Orleans from short-term to medium-term rentals just depending on the season. I just find short-term rentals would be so much easier to
It is.
self-manage.
Yeah.
Like everything can be automated a lot easier than with a long-term or a medium-term rental, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
most people know like Airbnb, like they know how to do short-term rentals, that they understand the concept now. It's like it's everywhere. So I think that like that makes it a little easier too.
Yeah.
Totally. So I guess why did you now decide to kind of go into fix and flips? Like what's the purpose there? What's the long-term strategy that you're thinking about?
So we have friends here that have done several fix and flips and even townhome development, and we just love them as people. And they came to us with this idea of like, would you guys want to be private money lenders? Meaning, we would give them the money and we would get a return on our investment. And that was just like something for anyone that doesn't know the concept, like that's where you're negotiating that with the person that you're providing the money to. And we were like, this is interesting because we're kind of interested in learning about fix and flips, but not wanting to actually do the work ourselves. Like there was a part of me that was like, should we try Chip and Joanna? And should I like try and knock things down? I was like, nah, okay. So not this season of life, at least. No. So we actually became private money lenders for one of their deals. And then we saw an opportunity for like people in our community and network that like we could raise money for our deals. So now we're seeing ourselves kind of on both sides.
Yeah.
Taking private money and then also like being private money lenders.
Yeah.
And fix and flips is just like here in Denver, this is what they know really well. And it was important to us that if we're going to give money to someone, that they're an operator that we like know they know their ish and they're really good at it and they've got proof of concept. So it kind of organically happened.
Yeah. And then, we're creating a fund, which is more like the legal entity and setting that up. And the idea will be, we'll have the fund and we'll scale up to fix and flips and we'll get into more development style just to have like a diverse portfolio because there's a lot of benefits to that as well. The Airbnbs are great right now. We're launching our third one, which is an A-frame up in the mountains, and it's awesome. And maybe we'll buy more in the future, but I think right now we want to focus on the other side of the business, let the Airbnb stabilize. There's a lot of like regulations and stuff going in. So I just want to be cautious about scaling too fast in one niche like that.
Yeah.
Because we have a good thing going and I don't want to just buy another one and maybe the things change. And plus the fix and flips are fun. They're exciting. You like give a before and after and like it's cool to look at it transform and people understand it more and they get excited about it. So that part's been really fun.
Totally. So how did you actually meet the people that you're partnering with for the fix and flips?
Was that
through
like,
a friend?
Yeah, a friend, like a networking thing.
Yeah, I mean, we are like big on going to events, talking to strangers. Like I am such an outgoing extrovert. Like I love people like you, Olivia. But I think like we also just see the importance of connecting with people because everybody's got different skill sets. And for anyone listening in, it's like, what is your unique advantage? Well, it's whatever you are excited about that you could get good at. Like, are you going to be the person that can physically like put the work in like with your muscles? Like you do not want me like tearing down or remodeling a bathroom, but I could definitely go find someone that could give us the money to do that. Right. Or I could go build the network. So it's like knowing our own lanes. We're like the things that we want to do and the way that we want to scale. Like we just are also excited to partner.
Yeah.
So we're constantly going to different types of events and talking about what we're doing to just get a gauge for like people and working with people that we like. Yeah. And, I've been an entrepreneur since 2014. So like at this stage in my like own growth, like I just want to work with cool people and just do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And stuff that I like kind of second, like I question, like, am I capable of doing this? Like I want stuff that stretches me in a different way. And the real estate space and like what we're doing now with this fund and this partnership, it's allowing me to stretch myself in a way that I haven't been stretched previously. And as like a growth obsessed person, that is like crucial for me.
I think what you said was really good, that at this stage of life, we just want to do cool things with people we like.
Yeah.
That's so underrated, I think, sometimes because doing real estate by yourself is fine, but like it's fun, and real estate allows you to be able to do it together because you can play at the scale that everyone can win, right? And it just makes it more fun that way because you spend your days, we can go set up an Airbnb or whatever by ourselves, and that's fine, but what do we want to spend our days doing? So that part's been really cool as well.
No, totally. And I feel like whenever you get started, especially as an entrepreneur, I know in corporate, it's not like I could ask other people to come do my job with me.
Right.
Like, so you just don't, it's not instinctive at the beginning to kind of like ask people to join you on the journey, just because that's never been a thing. So it's so interesting once you get into entrepreneurship, because it can get really lonely if you don't surround yourself with other people who are like have similar missions and goals to you and are trying to go the same direction. So it's so important to just get in those rooms and get around people doing the things that you want to do.
Preach, girl. Yes.
Another thing is like, so you guys are really good about getting around people who really stretch you, right? Like expanders. What are ways other than going to meetups that you guys have kind of been able to expand yourselves?
So I started doing this really early on through podcasts. So ironically, for anyone listening in, you're in the right spot. But really, like, I've been really strategic about what are the areas that I know I need to like level up in. So for example, like I had this belief early on that being an entrepreneur, like I had to be more serious to be taken seriously. And that was never going to work for my personality. So I found a podcast, like a woman that had a podcast back in 2014 that was really goofy and had a really successful business. I was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it too. So it's almost like I was like looking for like living testimonies of what was possible. And until I could have those people in person around me, I found them through podcasts. Like that's how I worked through money mindset. We found someone that now is a really good friend of ours, but he was a mentor from afar who didn't know who we were, that we listened into his podcast. So like intentionally consuming content with people that like from people that are a couple steps ahead of you, that you can borrow belief that if they can do it, I can too. That was one way to get those like mentors and expanders without physically meeting them yet. But then honestly, like, I mean, without like beating the dead drum or
you know, okay, this is like the third analogy you've messed up like today.
I don't know, whatever.
Okay, I'm really mad at them too.
Beating a dead horse. That sounds so bad. Anyway, so like without saying the same thing over again, I do think like no one can like fight me on this. There's nothing that's better than physically being in person though.
Yeah.
Because people can feel your energy, but I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back. And I know like Seena early on, like wanting to go to meetups, you're like, but I don't know what I'm doing. So like, what will that mean? Right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember going to the first meetup in Austin, no properties. I just decided to be a real estate investor, whatever that means. And I was terrified walking in. Like everyone's going to have 1,000 properties and I have none. They're going to think I'm like some weirdo. And I show up and you start talking to people. I'm like, oh no, I don't have one either yet. I'm still looking, or I'm still like working through these. Like, and you build this connection that everyone's at the same place. Like, or some people are at the same place as you. So you can feel like you're growing together and you don't feel as weird for feeling nervous or scared about getting into real estate. I think another underrated thing is someone asked us this question: if you could have like one mandate for someone has to do in their life at one point. And I don't remember if I said or you said, but it was, you have to move away from home for like a year and live in a different place.
Yep.
And I think we've lived in 4 different cities, and that's allowed us to gain perspective and like meet people that we normally wouldn't have met. And you pick up some expanders along the way just by being in a new environment. And, you know, I mean, you travel everywhere.
I mean,
so
Wanderlust.
Sure.
Our version of Wanderlust was that we've lived in like 5 major cities for 2 to 3 years in each city at least. And like the community
getting out of your normal forces you to expand who you are as a person and meet people and like find people that maybe have similar views or ambitions as you now, not just sitting in an environment that was your past.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is everything. Like if you don't have anyone that looks like the direction of where you're headed, good luck, because then you're just repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Totally.
And you are a byproduct of the expectations of your peer group. So if they all think you're crazy, like so many of my friends did, even though like when I was an entrepreneur, like love them, but they were like, Kacia wants to be Oprah or whatever. And it's like, yeah, maybe I do. But like you have to have people that are a couple steps ahead of you that like you're just like, oh, they're normal people.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's part of why I'm leaving New Orleans, because I feel like it's like my corporate past is still here and I'm ready to shed that and just completely start fresh, you know? Yeah. And it's like I was literally reading through a journal of mine from 2019, and this was a few months after I'd left Denver, and I was like, that was the happiest place just like soul-wise where I was. And it's so funny because even when I go back now, it's like I have some of my old friends, but I've got so many new friends as well, just in the investor space, in the entrepreneurial space. And that's why I feel like I just like have this calling to go back and be around more expanders.
Yeah. Yes. So true.
I love that. And then, so another thing that I want to touch on too is what you said about like the difference between podcasts versus being like in person. Cause I remember I was at that same point where I'd listen to literally every single Bigger Pockets podcast out there, like
Yeah.
every single podcast you could think of. But it wasn't until I actually went in person to a conference, I won tickets to it. I was like, holy crap. And literally gave my 3 weeks notice, 2 weeks after that. And it's like
Yeah.
just crazy how like being in that energy and that space with people completely can change the game.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and it's easy to hold people on a pedestal that you hear on a podcast or you
Yeah.
see on social media, or
Yeah.
you think that they have something that you don't. But in reality, it's like they started and they had no idea what the hell they were doing, but they probably just put more reps in than you.
Yep.
And I think like when you get around people that have really successful businesses and you're like, they're very normal people, they've just seen more success in that area than you have. You're like, okay, well, like they don't have any secret sauce. They literally just started. So why don't I just start?
Yeah, and they still go through the same feelings. So maybe they're buying 100 unit, whatever.
Right.
It's still the same feeling as you're feeling buying that one. Like it doesn't get better. You just get more confident along the way.
Yeah.
Because even now it's like we're launching this A-frame and still part of me is like, oh man, this better hit. Cause like we put so much money into it. I'm like, oh man, like you get that nervous feeling right before you launch. You're like, I hope this is everything that I imagined. But we've had the confidence in the track record. So you just get better at managing it.
Totally.
That's true.
No, I love that. So something I did want to touch on too is I know both of you are, I know especially you, Kacia, but I know that you, Seena, have done it too, but like are into kind of like human design and Enneagram and really understanding yourselves as human beings. How has that influenced both, I guess, your relationship and the way that you've done your business as well?
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to be an entrepreneur if I didn't have the self-awareness that I had, because sometimes, like it feels like you're pushing a gigantic monster truck tire up a hill and you're ugly crying and your snot and your mascara is getting together in your mouth and you're choking on your spit. Like that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, well, you don't know.
Seena's like,
That's
I
how
don't
feel.
understand.
I haven't worn mascara in a while.
But like truly, like, so I have to know myself and know how to support myself first before I ever have the expectations of anyone else to support me. It's like, I need to know what's going to stress me out. I need to understand how I'm motivated, like to my core. Those two tools that you just mentioned of human design and Enneagram, those are my two favorite tools because they've helped me really get to know myself and my own triggers and my own like desire. And then because I know myself, then I can then help support Seena in supporting me. Because I don't like to, even though we've been together for 15 years, like I am not putting the keys to my happiness in his pocket. Like I'm never going to say, like, you'll never even hear me say he makes me happy, because I feel like that's such a big pressure to put on somebody else to make you happy. I'm like, he contributes a crap ton to my happiness, but it's my job. So that means I have to know myself. So that's been, I mean, entrepreneurship, marriage, especially new parents, how I show up in my female friendships. Like I had to learn or I'd self-destruct.
Well, yeah. And you lose your keys all the time. So it would be real trouble. Like,
if my keys are in your pocket.
yeah. But really it's like, I think that's helped me in a sense of doing it my way. So like I can't do entrepreneurship like Kacia can. We have different makeups. Like, so human design has been like the biggest game changer for me. I would say, so much so that I texted our human design person after Brody was born in the hospital, and I gave her the time and the date and everything because I wanted to see what he was going to be like. And he's living up to it so far. I feel
oh my gosh, I love that.
He has the same human design as Tom Brady, and Seena's like, yes, he's a winner.
No big deal. Tom Brady, number 2.
It's gonna slay.
But really, it's like if I tried to do it how Kacia does it, I'm gonna get burnt out.
Yeah.
Or if I try to be like someone else online, like if that's one piece of advice, is like I think a lot of industries, but I think real estate has a lot of this comparison thing going on.
Yeah.
And it's more about just knowing who you are and how you operate as a human to be able to go do what you want to do. Otherwise, if you try to be someone else, A, it's not authentic, and B, you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then if you know yourself first, then you can help like the other person get like it's not his responsibility to be able to read my mind, so like we have to be able to articulate that to each other in partnerships, whether it's husband and wife or friendship or business partnerships too.
Completely. Were you ever skeptical about it?
Oh yeah, I was like, what do you mean give me
never.
Kacia was it? I was like, what do you mean give you birth time and your planets and what is all this? And then I did it.
I swear more into human design than me.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm a believer now. No, we get on this call with this coach. She's a human design coach, and all I gave her was my birth date and location. and she broke me down to a T.
Yep.
And after that, I was like, oh my God, like you're right. And then
He's like, can we listen to more podcasts about human design? Like all the time. He just like talks. He's like, well, it's because I'm a projector. I'm like,
It's because I'm a projector. I cannot. I know, it's so funny because I literally have like a 300-page PDF that's like all about my human design. But then I even downloaded, there's an app too where it's like, and I was just like, I just want to learn like a little bit more. But it's crazy because I was literally at my friend's baby shower a few weeks ago and I brought up human design. I don't even know how it came up, but we're all looking up everyone's human designs, and some people are just like not believing it. I'm like, you just need to get the whole report and read into it and watch it tell you everything you need to know.
It's mind blowing. It's creepy and cool.
Well, and my type is the easy breezy genius. That's what they call me. So.
That's what they call me.
Sure. Who is this they?
The hypothetical.
He calls himself that every day.
I am they.
He's like, of course I did great at that. I'm an easy breezy genius. I'm like, dear God. Here we are.
Oh my gosh.
We just like whenever she like gives me crap or something, or I'm like, well, it's my human design.
Oh my gosh.
Here we are.
I guess for both of you, like, what would you say is your zone of genius?
Anything people related. I have really high EQ in terms of like, I can connect with people really quickly. And I honestly think my ability to be a fully expressed version of me is probably the biggest gift that I have.
Yeah.
Because I just don't hold back. Like I don't water myself down in any environments, which means I'm too much for some people, but like I'm so right for others. And I think that like as a human, that's one of the biggest gifts that we can give to the world is to like be in alignment and show up as ourselves to give other people the permission to do the same. So for me, it's EQ, anything in that realm. From an actual real estate perspective, it's like I can go to the moon with ideas because I truly believe anything is possible to my core. And that creates this expansive ideas that like I can ideate for days.
Yeah, we have a rule that when Kacia comes up with a new business plan, we got to wait 2 weeks before we implement.
So fair.
Because by then she'll probably be over it.
Because Olivia, I wanted my business idea I had a few weeks ago is I wanted to create fanny packs where the dog and the mom could also add on if they wanted to match their child. And
oh my God.
Guess who would be shipping those out of our garage?
Not me.
I would buy one.
See?
I know you would. But guess who has to pack it and take it to the
what's your strength?
My strength is like operations details, figuring out like how we get there, whether it's real estate or whatever we're doing.
I'm the who, you're the how.
Well, I would also like, I remember, so Seena, you came and chatted with a lot of my students a month or two ago.
Yeah,
and something you're really good at too, I would say, is you can really like pinpoint what the problem is for other people and just like really bring that out of them. And I was just so impressed, and everyone kind of like was like, oh my gosh, like their brains opened after that. I was like, that was so good.
He does it to me too. Yeah. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes I want to take a fork and shove it deeply in his eye.
As my human design makeup says, I can't give my opinion until it's asked for. So,
as soon
as asked for, it's a floodgate of.
You're like, let me tell you everything.
So I don't just spew it on Kacia because sometimes it's not wanted at that moment in time. We want to just live in the pity party for a second, not fix it right away. And
so
completely. And then I remember Kacia too. Literally, the first time I met you, I'd never met you before, and you were like, "I'm just gonna give you a huge hug out of nowhere." I'm like, "This is so nice." Like, you don't get that from people, especially if you're coming from like a corporate environment. You're definitely not getting that.
You don't be hugging people.
That's what got me into trouble in corporate. I'm a hugger.
Right? I
got me into trouble in COVID too.
Kacia hugged our first inspector at a house.
Oh my God.
Like, doesn't know the guy, and he just goes in for a hug.
And our like one of our best friends, Chantel, who was also our agent on that deal, she looks at me and she's like, Kacia, I've wanted to hug him for years, but I never have. And you just opened the floodgates, so now we all hug. And
oh my gosh.
Scott, we follow each other on Instagram too. No big deal.
That is so freaking cute. Okay, well, how has navigating everything now as new parents been?
Oh, it is crushing the idea that I had previously that working more meant making more. And also that chaos thriving. I used to say that thriving in chaos was a superpower of mine. And I no longer will say that because I just don't want chaos. I want my internal nervous system to feel good because having a small child is chaotic enough. Like who knows like what bodily fluid you're going to get and like what's your sleep schedule. But honestly, I am a ninja at getting stuff done. So now we have a nanny and I can do what I used to do in 40 hours a week in 15.
Wow.
Because I like when I'm in the zone, I'm just in the zone and I say no to things that aren't a hell yes. Like
it just aligned like
Ugh.
what's important and what you want to do, because now you have the most important thing in the world. So anything else that comes in is taking away time from that. So you want to make sure that it's worth it, right? Or like align with what you want to get done. Otherwise, so you learn to like trim all the stuff that's like, I don't know what we're doing before. You just like spend time, like if you have the whole day, you just, maybe I'll record this one podcast and I'll run over here and it's like, no,
a lot of bopping.
Yep. That's me. I was a bopper, but there's like just no way you can do that.
And honestly,
or
like,
want to do that
from like a real like perspective of this for anyone listening in that's working hard on building something on the side, or you're working hard on a business and you don't think about this often, but like stop for a second and think about like, what is it that you're gifting a future version of you because of what we've done in real estate, because of what I've done as an entrepreneur before that. We have the option now that like we do family walks every single morning and our workouts. We don't start our workday till 10 a.m. We get to be present with our child. Like we both have these really flexible schedules, and it's because of a lot of choices that we made and hard work that we put in prior to the season, which has made us had a lot more ease in this season because we have each other. If Seena was still a dentist, I would be probably in some postpartum spiral because he would have gone back to work immediately because he wasn't getting PTO. And like, I mean, I would have had to probably give up some portion of my business that lights me the F up. And like, now it's just like, we make things together. Like we're in this like we're in a family era. So like whenever one of us is asked to speak at something, like we're going together as a family. Like we say yes to things that is aligned for our whole family. And we say no to things that we don't want to do. Like I say no to speaking at places that I'm like, doesn't sound like a fun family vacation. I'm not in. Right. And I would have never done that before because I think the story I would have told myself is I should be doing this or I'm not grateful for this opportunity or I want to support this person. But now it's just really clear what's a no.
Yeah. And part of like that, when I was sitting, like when I was with dentist and I was sitting on that chair that day and I was like, I can't do this anymore, was how am I going to be able to show up as a parent when we have a kid? And that's really important to me because neither of us had the family dynamic that we crave, like a really tight knit family. And I was like, there's no path to that if I stay here.
Yeah.
So I have to make a change no matter what, because I already know what this path is going to go down. As hard as it was to like make that change, I already knew what that was going to be. And just feeling super grateful now that we're living it, that like we get busy and like things come up and we get frustrated, but then just reminding ourselves like we wanted this and we have this dynamic, our family walks in the morning and the ability to wake up with him and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not running off to go do a root canal at 8 a.m. after not sleeping all night. Like it could be like I could be in that situation that wasn't fitted for me. Right?
Totally.
So true.
No, I love it. And you two are really just like a testament of like, you get to decide what's true for you at the end of the day. Like you can literally craft your life the way that you want. And I just think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Well, we are closing out here, but before we end, I'm going to ask you the 3 final interview questions that I ask every single person. And the first one is, what does your ideal perfect day look like? I mean, it seems like you guys are kind of living that already. But
I mean, we actually live it. Yeah. And I think a perfect day would involve me working. Some portion of it would involve me being unplugged, doing something active, probably an overpriced latte, maybe some tapas. Like, I don't know. I mean, really, like, here's how I would answer this. Also spending time with people that when I leave them, I feel even more energized.
Yeah.
And I pay really close attention to how I feel when I'm around people. And that's how I make decisions of who I want to stay friends with. Is like, do I feel energized when I leave them or do I feel like depleted when I leave them? And so a perfect day would involve probably a $5 latte, something outside, time with Brody, a little bit of work, us hanging out, and then hanging out with people that light me up.
Yeah. And I'll echo that with like also like the life of like we love to travel and take our family places. Like the past few weeks we've been traveling as a family, and like even before we got pregnant, we had like one friend that would take their kid everywhere, and everyone else would like just stay at home. We're like, no, we're gonna just bring him because this is our lifestyle. Like we want to be able to go places, and he's gone on 6 flights already.
Totally.
He's like 4 months old. So hopefully he keeps doing well on flights because that's our lifestyle.
And he has to roll with it because we're not giving up our lifestyle.
No.
He's coming.
So,
Well, that was like, I remember when I got a dog for the first time and everyone's like, your life is over. I'm like, my dog's literally been to Portugal, guys.
yeah. Your dog's been to more countries than like 90% of humans.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So true.
Okay, so question number 2. What is your mantra?
When things are hard, I would say to myself, it always gets better, right? Or like, it's this or something better when we've like struggled in the real estate space.
Yeah, I don't know the right words around it, but more of like when you're in the middle of the challenge, it's like this is stretching you and you're up leveling, and this is a good thing.
But my core thing for me as a person is like, I'm always obsessed with 2 things. 1, being present where my feet are, and then falling more in love with the process than what the process can produce.
Love that. I love that.
That's good. I'll take that one.
You can have that one as
It's
well.
great. Sounds great.
Yeah, she said mine.
And last question, what does wealth mean for you?
The ability to choose whatever the hell you want to do at whatever moment.
Yeah, having the energy to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And the ability to choose that. Your health, yeah, that's all incorporated to that. That's part of the energy thing.
Yeah, energy.
Yeah.
Energy. Sounds great.
You took my answer. Yeah.
I love that. Well, this has been so freaking fun. Where can everyone find you, like on the socials, or if they want to, maybe invest with y'all?
Yeah. So if you love podcasts and you need more to add to the rotation, my podcast is called Empower Her. It's a personal development podcast, Monday, Thursday episodes. Seena and I together host a real estate podcast called Get Investing. Like our last name is Ghetmeri, Ghet. And then you can find us on Instagram at Kacia Ghetmeri and at Seena Ghetmeri.
Yeah. And if you're interested in being a private money lender or partnering with us, you can just message me on Instagram and we can chat about it and see if it's a right fit for you.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
So fun. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate you,
us.
girl.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.